Alright, so the next test that we're going to do is measuring pH. And if you think back, high school chemistry, this is measuring the acidity of a solution. So our pH scale ranges from 0 to 14. Around 0 to 6 is things that are acidic or acid, like stomach acid or Coca-Cola or lemon juice. Around 8 to 14 are bases. Those are kind of cleaning products like ammonia and bleach. They have a soapy taste to them sometimes. But if you were an aquatic species like a fish, you probably wouldn't want to hang out in either of those extremes. So what we're looking for when we're measuring pH is a pH around a neutral 7. And our measuring standard that we're going against here, set by the state, is 6.5 to 8.5. So right around that neutral 7. So for this pH measuring test, it's pretty simple. Again, we're going to rinse 3 times our sample tubes facing upstream, and we're going to collect right at the bottom of this frosted area. It's hard to see on these sample tubes, but there's kind of like a notch or a ridge that you can feel with your fingers. I'm going to bring out my extra dropper just to help me get up to that sample amount a little bit easier. I'm going to let the sediment settle out before I collect. Alright, so I'm going to start by rinsing 1, 2, 3, and collect. And you can sometimes pour out and get right at your measuring amount. Sometimes you get lucky. Just a little bit above the measuring line. Let's see if I can get it. I'm a little bit below, so I'm going to use my extra dropper here. Get right up to that line. Okay. So I'm just going to repeat with my second measuring tube what I just did. So rinsing 3 times. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to try to get my sample down below. Actually, I got it below the measuring, so I'm going to get some water, bring it right up to that measuring amount. Okay. Alright, so now I have my 2 samples. I stuck them in my color comparator here, just as an easy way to hold them. So they're both the same right now, but I'm going to add a reagent, and that's going to produce a chemical change to figure out what our pH is, to the one on the right hand side here. And again, when you're doing a liquid reagent, make sure that you're holding the dropper straight up and down. So I'm going to do 6 drops into the tube on the right hand side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Half that. Okay, so I'm going to take this tube out, make sure it mixes up. Okay, and so a good trick for this one is to hold this up to the sunlight as you compare. So your tube on the left is just going to be a blank. It's just going to help you compare. And so how this works is that there's a dial, and it corresponds to different shades of color, and those shades of color correspond to different numbers on the pH scale. And if you remember, we're trying to find a pH around 7 and see if it as close as we can to that. If it looks like the color is in between 2 colors, feel free to take the average. So say it's between 6 and 6.5, you can do 6.25. So I'm going to try to find my best source of sunlight. So I'm looking at our pH sample. I'm seeing we're definitely around 8.0, which is more on the basic side. And our range, our standard that we're looking at is between 6.5 and 8.5. So we're still within that standard. But sometimes we do see fluctuations in our pH throughout the day, depending on our photosynthesis process, depending on plants taking in carbon dioxide, letting out O2 that can raise the pH during the warmer parts of the day, and then towards sunset or end of the day, that's when we tend to see kind of a lower pH. Sometimes there's chemicals in the creek too that are unknown to us that can influence the pH as well. But for today, I would say that we are right at 8.0. And that's what I will record on our data sheet. And then I'm going to dump my sample, both tubes. And then close up my box again to ensure I'm not mixing up any sample equipment or tubes or reagents.